Monster Hunter Wilds is officially known to most people as slop, but can it make a comeback? Everyone knows that Capcom is investing pretty big into trying to get people back into playing this game. And, well, so far, let's see how it goes. As we can see, consulting the SteamDB chart, which has a whopping 46% positive like ratio, which is oof, if I was Capcom, I would honestly not blame them to throw in the towel at this point, even though they won't. But the 46 Starfield has a better ratio, okay? Bethesda games in general are better than this, and that says a lot because Bethesda's clearly garbage. Yes, I cannot go a single day without mentioning Bethesda's name in a negative way. I need help. In any case, let's look at the player numbers because this is what we actually care about. From 1.4 million player peak, which is absolutely massive. One of the biggest launches of all time for gaming, by the way. To now a whopping 65 current players, which you probably think is not good, but the reality is, well, if we consult the chart, we can actually see that it's not bad. After every giant update, you see something like this, and this is not bad, considering this is slightly less than 5% retention if you do the math, which is not necessarily terrific, but not actually bad. That means that people want to come back for Monster Hunter Wilds, and that is a good thing, obviously. And we can see that, you know, every time there's some kind of big announcement for updates, fixes, or whatever, people do tend to come back, which means there is a chance. But while that is not happening, well, yeah, a minimum of 23k. That's really bad, okay? I'm not gonna lie, boys. That is less than 2% retention. That is actually less than 2% retention. Monster Hunter Wilds, I think the smallest peak that we ever found was something like almost 1%. But, you know, having an average peak of almost slightly higher than 2% most of the time is not great in general. But I do think that Capcom can bring it back. And there are, well, updates slowly happening to the game. Currently, it's not great. But, again, I think this is a situation, give it time, and people are gonna play.
If you're a fan of Monster Hunter, well, 2025 has been an interesting year with a ton of big releases and announcements. However, now it's time to look forward to what 2026 has in store for
By the way, boys, is this game playing more than 20 FPS finally?
us all, as there are new games and updates on the horizon that will keep the hunting goodness going on. Well, let's start off with what's happening with Monster Hunter Wilds. Wilds has recently received its last major title update with the release of Title Update 4, which included the awesome fight that was against Gogmazios, but on top of that we also got the Lumen Hymn Festival, marking the end of base Wilds with a major bang. Now, while those were the last major content updates for Wilds, there are still a few things
Wait, Lumen Hymn as in a disco?
going on in the pipeline to be excited about, with the biggest of them being the fact that we'll get an update in February for the weapon and pendant from the community weapon design contest, which is pretty exciting to be honest. Because you see, we're going to be getting the awesome Shatter Seal designed weapon, as well as a number of different smaller content bits, like some more quests, the introduction of the last Arc-Tempered monster, which is Arcveld by the way, and a special collaboration with Monster Hunter Stories 3. Alongside that,
I never actually talked about this, but Monster Hunter has been very desperate in getting people back. Now, again, we looked at the charts, okay? Listen, consult the chart. This is not necessarily the worst, but at the same time, dude, Monster Hunter is currently putting so much money. Capcom is just pouring money into Monster Hunter because this was massive. Obviously, if you have 1.4 million peak players, you can get at least 1.4 million peak players back if you do technically a good job. Now, probably not happening, obviously, but there is a very good chance that just could be the way that this works. And And Monster Hunter, Capcom has put in so much money in all kinds of crossovers and things. Dota has a Monster Hunter crossover. It is wild. Absolutely wild how much money Capcom is just pushing into everything that will take it. So, the future of Monster Hunter? I don't know, Chief.
The devs have also set out a promise and commitment to improve the game's performance on PC and console. There's going to be additional performance updates happening monthly until February. This is really good news, as many people have been saying that they have felt the performance improvement from Title Update 4, but for many it was only a small bump. So I'm going to pose the question to you guys: what is performance like for you at the moment on Wilds? Did Title Update 4 improve things or not? Well, with Monster Hunter Wilds wrapping up, the next big question is, when do we actually get to hear about a Wilds expansion? So we're going to have to look back at Monster Hunter World, because Iceborne was announced roughly 11 months after the base game launched, and then released about 9 months later on September 6th of 2019. Well, Wilds launched, of course, in February of 2025, and the final major update landed in December, so we can line things up with a similar cycle and expectation. Because of that, it wouldn't be all too surprising if Capcom announced a Wilds expansion around January 2026, which would of course be 11 months since release, with the expansion being expected to land later on in the year. However, it must be said that Wilds is also following its own timeline compared to previous games, so we may be waiting longer for that reveal, or maybe...
Yeah, Wilds is definitely going to be doing things in a different way than other Monster Hunter games have, because the situation is just drastically different than anything that they have dealt with before. Man, we're also actually entering that time period where you can't actually make a follow-up for an already existing game if it has a lot of content. Prime example, the obviously excluding Monster Hunter Wilds, is probably Payday 3. Like, no one wants to pay Payday 3 because Payday 2 has, well, everything that Payday 3 has, but more and better. So, why would you pay the new thing while the old thing you already own don't have to spend more money on it, and money is becoming obviously a luxury, sadly? Like, what are you supposed to do about this? There's not a lot. Okay? If you have a successful franchise with a game that's still played by many people, and you release the new thing and it has like 1/4 of the content, which was the biggest issue with Monster Hunter Wilds at this point. Well, when it launched, people were mad about the fact that it just doesn't have enough content, it doesn't have enough hunts, it doesn't have this mode, that mode, item sets, all of these things. All of these things were bad, and obviously the completely crazy not working frame rate, all of the bugs, all of the things and whatnot. That was a massive issue for, well, the majority of players. So how do you deal with that? Do you just create a new game that already has 15 years of content inbuilt into it? Probably not, because then it's not inaccessible to new players. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place now.
Capcom have chosen to let it cook for a bit longer to avoid the same issues that launch Wilds had. Now, hopefully the expansion for Wilds will be really cool, and we know it will 100% be a step up in difficulty, and we can't wait for it to be the opposite of Wilds, where people then start complaining that it's too hard. Now, it has always been a pipe dream, but maybe it's time for them to include a new weapon in the expansion. After all, it did kind of feel like they were soft teasing some kind of gauntlet weapon with that Akuma collaboration, which was pretty cool. There is another Monster Hunter project worth keeping an eye on.
Okay, I'm gonna Google. Let's see if we find anything. How many Monster Hunter Wilds collabs are... That's actually... As of 2016, Monster Hunter Wilds has no official announcement of major crossovers yet, but it received 3 of them Cosmic DLC packs through the summer of 2025, with Capcom known extensive collaborators: The Witcher 3, Horizon Zero Dawn, Final Fantasy 14. Wait. So this is just the big ones? A Witcher 3 collab, a Horizon Zero Dawn LOL, and a Final Fantasy one? Again, I know that there's a Dota one, so how many small ones are there that we don't even know about? Again, Capcom is burning money like crazy for Monster Hunter Wilds.
Though, and that's Monster Hunter Outlanders. Whether you love it or hate it, it is going to be taking the series in a different direction compared to the mainline games, and so it's going to be pretty interesting to follow. If you need a little recap of what Outlanders
So this is, mobile slop?
is, well, it's a mobile-focused, open-world survival experience being developed by Timmy Studio Group. The devs say that it was designed to be played in shorter sessions while still keeping the core Monster Hunter loop intact, which from the gameplay, it actually does look pretty cool. The crazy thing is that unlike Wilds or World, this one leans much more into persistence and progression over time. One of the more interesting twists is how hunters work in it though. We know that you either choose from pre-made characters, with each of them having specific weapons tied to them, or having unique abilities. Or on the other side, you can create your own hunter who has
Okay, so it just has classes.
access to a wider selection of weapons. That being said, the overall weapon roster is more streamlined than the usual 14 that we see in main title games, as not all of the weapons have been announced in Outlanders yet. The game also introduces Radiant monsters, which are enhanced versions of familiar hunts designed to add extra challenge and variety. Early hands-on impressions have been positive, especially when it comes to the combat feel and how the monsters behave. But as a free-to-play title, we are waiting to see how monetization is handled before fully buying in. Then,
probably extremely poorly. One of the things I predicted about Capcom is the fact that this Monster Hunter Wilds thing could actually break them, because Capcom has this stupid 10-year plan where they promise they're gonna return like a certain percent of investment to investors, and well, they're finally at risk of not doing it. And one of the reasons is the underperformance of Monster Hunter Wilds. So I said that they could start doing desperate things. And again, they are burning more and more money. Again, all of these collabs, they cost money. And trust me, it's not Final Fantasy paying Monster Hunter Wilds to put in a promotion in their game for them.
of course, there's Monster Hunter Stories 3, which for us is one of the most exciting releases on the horizon for the franchise, as we are massive Stories 2 fans, and we loved the turn-based combat. This new edition of the series is looking even better though, as it's getting a deeper focus on narrative, bigger stakes for the world itself, and systems that are bringing back some of the monster customization depth that fans loved from the original. It was also revealed that changes to game mechanics like endangered species, invasive monsters, and so on will actually have us handling the ecosystems of areas themselves, which is pretty
Okay, does anyone actually care about this?
cool, because it is always hinted at in Monster Hunter lore, but now we're actually going to be doing it in-game with benefits like getting rare monsties. Not only that, the world looks bigger as well, and the art style looks amazing, even the soundtrack has us excited. We watched a bit of the gameplay and the soundtrack is so amazing, we just can't wait to dive in and actually play. Hopefully the game has a monster just as epic as one of our favourite monsters of all time, Ultura from Stories 2, but we'll have to wait and see. But Stories 3, Outlanders, and a likely expansion announcement somewhere down the line is pretty exciting stuff. 2026 is shaping up to be another stacked year for Monster Hunter fans, even if Wilds itself is starting to wind down right now. But which thing are you most excited for?
It's not gonna wind down. Again, I don't think it's gonna wind down, because what else does Capcom currently have working for them? Nothing. Are they gonna just make the next Monster Hunter game and call it a day? You know what? I don't believe that. Anyway, that was Arc's Gaming 10 out of 10. Bye.